Hello, my name is Paul King, and this is the story of XOT362, my 1960 Vauxhall Victor F Series 2 Super that I owned between 1977 and 1986. I hope you enjoy it. I bought XOT362, or Humphrey as it was known as, on the 11th of August 1977. These first three pictures were taken on the day when I purchased the car. The only accessory on the car was the heater. What, an oblong number plate when it should have been square? As you can see, the car's been completely stripped now, and we can see the state of the offside front hinge pillar, and the top bracket, as you can see, has rusted through, and we did replace it in the end. Here we see the offside front hinge pillar in a bit more clarity. I must have sprayed it with something to show the rust. So once again, yeah, the top hinge pillar is gone. But also the front box for the seal, that's gone, but got remade brand new when the new seals went on. This is Humphrey on his side, and this gives a great view of the underside. As can be seen, the underneath was really good with just one rear jacking point hold. Just at the bottom and to the right of the front hinge pillar on the inner seal, you'll see a reinforcement plate. The bottom edge of it completely rusted away, so we chiselled it off and put a new one in. Yeah, here we see the top bracket on the offside hinge pillar being replaced, and a guy I employed to weld in the new seals, and he's just putting in the front box. However, you may notice that there's no doors on the car. You should always have your doors on the car when you're welding the seals so you get your gaps correct. Should also have the front wing on as well, but there we go. This is obviously me cleaning the back axle and the leaf springs, both of which got replaced later on in the car's life. Cleaned and painted and back on the car. These three pictures show the bodywork has now been rubbed down, ready for its top coat of maroon. It was so good underneath that we decided to leave the original paint there and use that as a base coat. You can just about see that the lower front wing extension bows outwards a little bit, and we couldn't figure out why, so the next picture shows the temporary fix that my father applied to it. So on this picture you see the temporary fix I referred to. The extension was cut, moved back slightly, filled, rubbed down and repainted. Interestingly, on this picture you can see the anchor plate for the headlamp, which is why most of the F Victors, the headlamps fell out of the wings because the anchor plate rusted, and so did the wing. The only picture of me with the engine, obviously talking the front main bearing caps. Love the hair. Well, it's the 12th of December 1977. I've still got the hair. Yeah, the restoration went pretty well, but take a look at the back near side wing, the Super Badge. It's not level, it's actually down on the right hand side when it should be up on the right hand side. Now there's a clue to something else that happened later. So here we have the front end view of Humphrey finished. So if we look at the back wing on this side, we notice the Super Badge is correct. The S is down and the R is up. So why was the near side the other way round? More on it later. Yeah, it really shows off the styling of the body of this shot. One of my favourites. Yeah, I know, it's still got an oblong number plate on the back end. It will get changed eventually though. Now that's an empty engine bay. So why have I taken it back out? I did a wedding in the car and she barely turned over in order to start the engine. So I took the engine out, stripped it all down and found that number 3 conrod I'd put in back to front, which made it very, very tight. Just turned it round, rebuilt the engine, popped it all back in, hey presto. A spot of relaxation. Oh God, and that damn number plate again. So here we see the start of the second restoration, and these first three pictures are just basically taking the wings off and getting down ready to remove the front radiator panel. So with the wings removed and the radiator out, you can just drill out the spot welds and remove the radiator panel assembly, as you can see from these two pics. Now, it was at this point we discovered that there was accident damage to the near side front inner wing, and it had been beaten out, and the radiator panel had been replaced, but it had been welded in on the near side too far back, and that is why the front wing extension bowed. So we now put the wing back on, realigned the panel before taking it off to get it spot welded, so everything did line up. So this is what the body looks like without the radiator panel, and the bracing bracket that you see running between the inner wings was also rotten, so we had to make a new one of those, put that in, then welded in the new front panel, towed it to a garage to have them spot weld it in so it looks totally original. So new panel on the left, old panel on the right. Pretty obvious really, I suppose. Here we see the bracket removed, which was hiding this nice hole behind it. Wonderful mud trap on the F-Victor that was. Anyway, that was taken off, and the next picture shows you the state it was in. Not much of that left, is there? This is the near side rear floor pan in red oxide after I scraped away every single piece of undersill. Look how mint that panel was. And the offside rear floor pan, and you can just about see a bit of the front floor pan. But look how good the inner sill was and the chassis rail. Absolutely amazing, the underneath of the car. Near side rear spring hanger, beautiful condition. Well, a lot of hard work done there. The red oxide was then covered in black undersill and then given a coat of colour and then a coat of VAUXHALL to protect the lot. So it's now time to turn our attention to the front axle beam, and these four pictures show the various states of its restoration, but I can't remember exactly what time it was we found out that this front axle beam was twisted. The near side of the car had taken a hell of a smash, and the near side front wheel had whipped back and bent the lower wishbone and the top turret. I did later acquire the last front axle beam that VAUXHALL knew of, plus wishbones, tops and bottoms, genuine shock absorbers, rebuilt it, realigned it, and all was good. I had a pair of brand new rear wings, so now was the time to fit them. So you see the offside removed and the splash panel, which was a modification to the Series 2s and 61 models. The Series 1s had a little vertical one, which didn't really do a lot. But anyway, so yeah, you can see the red oxide and the preparation that was done for the rear wings. So here's the new rear wings and the old new front wings, but you see the near side one's got the new front wing extension. The one that we jiggered and moved back was cut off, thrown away, and a new one put back on, so that's how we realigned the front panel. So the day came when Humphrey was towed to a farm out in Essex, where the guy who was going to do the respray resided. You could just see mine and Dad's old black cab, LUL 988P, which later got written off when he had a crash in it. But anyway, I digressed. Yep, so there's no paint on the car whatsoever, and it's all down to bare metal. So while the car was away being resprayed, we had a lot of problems with the guy who was doing the spray job. He messed us around something terrible. I was recommended him by a fellow enthusiast, but it all went sour, and in the end I almost happened to threaten the guy with legal action just to get the car back. So while this was all going on, which took months, we built this little test bed for the engine to keep it nice and free and in use, and well, you'll see the outcome in a minute. This obviously is the 3-speed all-synchro mesh gearbox. All new synchro cones went in it. A new reverse gear and first gear. Also went in were 2 new lace shaft thrust washers of the modified type. The originals were found to spin and wore into the casing, thus allowing end float and I suppose crunching of the gears. New oil seals, etc., and any wear in the gear change mechanism removed by welding where worn. Obviously a steering box. So That was rebuilt with new bearings, new oil seals, and all it required actually was one shim being removed to make it absolutely perfect. Quite surprising. Well, what have we here? It's Humphrey in the body shop, but as you can see, not maroon, Regency cream, an absolutely gorgeous colour. All I had to do was find a blue interior, which some months later I did in Birmingham, and it was absolutely mint, and that went in the car to finish it. And talking of finished car, watch for the next few pictures. Well, there he is, finished. Hope you like the pictures. They're absolutely brilliant. Obviously, there are some more bits and pieces to go on the car over a period of time, but it's not the end of the story. No, no, no. Well, it's pretty obvious that's the engine bay finished, isn't it? So the next 8 pictures were actually taken for insurance purposes, but they really do show the car in fabulous detail, so that's why I've included them. You remember at the beginning I showed you the super badge on the near side rear wing being at the wrong angle, and the reason for that was as we know, the front near side of the car took a hefty wallop, so did the near side rear. And that rear wing must have been changed at some time because the welding was not spot welding, it was seam welded. So they obviously, when it was repaired, they got that super badge wrong. So now's the opportunity for me to get it right. Well, looky here, we've got a square rear number plate. Oh, at last. So there we are. Humphrey's now finished. He's gone from maroon to Regency cream and almost in concours condition. The year is 1983. I've made the decision to leave the UK and live in the Middle East, and I wanted to take Humphrey with me. But Humphrey being right-hand drive and all the cars in the Middle East being left-hand drive wouldn't have been practical. And then by chance, my friend David Whiteley told me of a breaker's yard in Norfolk called Priors of Yaxham. Now, Priors of Yaxham, what an amazing place. An open field, cram-packed with left-hand drive British cars. And the story goes that the US Air Force Base at Mildenhall, which wasn't far away, the Americans there didn't like right-hand drive cars. They only liked left-hand drive. So they ordered British left-hand drive cars from the factories. And I think it was about 1966, they left the base and went back to the States. They didn't take the cars with them, so they just drove them into Priors, switched them off, and there they stayed for all those years. Now, my friend David and I, we went to Priors, like I say, and I bought a complete left-hand drive F-Series estate. I'll tell you what, just watch the pictures. That'll tell you all. Well, I suppose you've guessed, yeah, I was going to convert the car to left-hand drive. A massive undertaking, but very straightforward really. And these 3 pictures are of the left-hand drive bulkhead basically that I brought back. Hardly had to do any cutting because the car was so rotten. So this picture shows the engine bay when it was still right-hand drive, and the guy who sprayed the car sprayed the engine bay in Gyp Fast, which is incredibly brittle, and I decided that I'd have to respray the engine bay anyway after converting the bulkhead to left-hand drive. Well, the old right-hand drive dashboard completely stripped, steering column out as well, wiring loom, the lot. Take a look at the bottom left-hand corner where the speedo goes. You see 2 little holes in the dashboard. Well, that's where the switches for the fog lamps should go. So right-hand drive dashboard cut out. So now we can see the wiper linkage in its entirety, all replaced with brand new at a later date. To the left of the centre you can see a cable coming out of the dash. That's the cable that controls the fresh air vent, and just to the right of that in the centre is a black bracket, and that is, believe it or not, the radio fitting kit. So here's the left-hand drive dashboard, removed from the rusty bulkhead, and as you can see it was reasonably pitted with rust, but it only needed rubbing down and stoppering to make it look as good as new. Well, jumping well ahead now, the left-hand drive dash is now welded into the car. It's plug welded, not seamed or spot, because it's so difficult to get in there in those gaps and along the bottom of the windscreen aperture. Yeah, and can you see the two little holes again by the bottom right hand corner of where the speedo goes? Yes, they are the switch holes again for the spotlights, which I never did get. So with the steering column back in place and the radio, another piece that had to go back in was the lighting switch panel. That was the left-hand drive one, and its chrome plate is different, so that had to be re-chromed. The bulkhead's been filled in, that's all making it look like original, and lo and behold, the speaker lying on the floor, that's fitted into the correct panel that goes under the radio. Yeah, all good. This is the bracket that goes between the motor mount rail and the floor pan. The one on the right is from Humphrey when he was right-hand drive. The one on the left is from the left-hand drive car, and the pin sticking out is the part that holds the handbrake mechanism. Now, that was incredibly difficult to remove from the right-hand drive one on Humphrey, and it's still there. I never did get it out. It would have caused too much damage, so I left it. So all the left-hand drive parts are now in the car. I removed all that gyp fast because it looked a complete mess. Rubbed it all back down to bare metal, undercoated and top coated. And I think that shot is me still undercoating. Oh, this is a good one. Believe it or not, amongst all that lot are the two wiring looms, left-hand drive and right-hand drive. Now, I thought I'd make it look good by retaping the left-hand drive loom. So I removed all the outer taping and found a mass of wires that had all melted together. So that's why that car ended up in the breakers, because it obviously had electrical fault somewhere. So I cut out those burnt wires. I cut out good wires from the right-hand drive loom so the colours and the wire would be the same. Spliced them into the left-hand drive loom, put it all back together, went back in the car, and it all worked first time. Well, my favourite picture of all of the pictures in the album, Humphrey's finally finished, left-hand drive, all works, MOT'd. Absolutely loved it, really enjoyed it, and if I could only do it again, I would. Well, what can you say, just another lovely picture of Humphrey. Hey, look, the hair's receding. So what's this picture doing in the album? Well, that is the original Humphrey, and that's my late mum and dad in their youth, standing beside him. And the little boy behind the steering wheel you can just make out? Well, you can guess who that is. Well, that ends our story. I hope you really enjoyed it. And there's just a little bit extra to go. Here you see LJD352, which was my 1957 Series 1F model, Super. I bought this one as a complete wreck and did a ground up restoration in more detail than I did Humphrey's actually. But that's a story for another time. Just a teaser, this is her as she is at the present time. I got a phone call one evening from a lady. She said her husband's given up the drive-in, can you value my car? So myself and the friend Bob Dobinson drove round, looked at WHJ 150, and we both fell in love with the car. This is the classic, one owner, never had anyone sit in the back. Low mileage, serviced by the VAUXHALL main dealer from new, and that's 24 years. It was in mint condition, just a little bit of rust on the back end of the seals, and the bottom half of the paint had gone a little bit dull, but the Haven blue top half was absolutely mint, not a mark. Anyway, I decided to sell LJD 352 and bought WHJ 150. Like I say, didn't really do anything to it. Then went off to the Middle East, sold it. The car is now in Australia, and you'll see the next picture of how she looks today. Just look at that, eh? What a peach. If only I'd have kept her. Well, there you go. That's it. Story told. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Just a couple of things. In 1981, myself, David Whiteley and Ron Ruggins founded the F Victor Owners Club, which is now the VAUXHALL Victor Owners Club. So if you own an F, an FB or an FC Victor, then come and join us at www.vauxhallvictorclub.co.uk. And just to finally end it, This was recorded during the coronavirus outbreak. Stay safe.